30 days, 3 AI coding tools, 1 solo founder trying to ship a real SaaS product without losing his mind or his savings. I'm not here to read you a feature comparison chart you could find on Reddit. I built with all 3. I hit the walls with all 3. And by the end of this, you'll know exactly which one to open when you sit down to build. Welcome back to Venture Void. If you're a solo founder, a micro SaaS builder, or you're just someone who's tired of paying developers $400 an hour to write code you could almost write yourself, this channel is your unfair advantage. Hit that subscribe button before we get into this, because this one is dense. Here's the real problem. Nobody talks about when they hype up AI coding tools. You don't just need code, you need context. You need an AI that understands that this function you're writing right now connects to that database schema you designed 3 weeks ago, and that the API endpoint you're building has to match the authentication flow in a completely different file. Most developers using these tools are treating them like a smarter autocomplete. Solo founders can't afford that mistake because you're not writing isolated functions. You're building a system alone, with no senior engineer to catch what falls through the cracks. That's the actual problem. Context collapse. And each of these 3 tools handles it completely differently. I spent 30 days building a real project, a lightweight client portal, SaaS for freelance agencies. Think Notion meets a project tracker, white label, with Stripe billing built in. Nothing insane, but enough complexity to genuinely stress test each tool. Authentication, database migrations, a payment layer, a dashboard with live data, and a basic admin panel. Real scope, real pressure. Let me start with GitHub Copilot, because most of you probably already have it. I used it for the first 10 days. At $15 a month for the individual plan, it's the cheapest of the 3 by a meaningful margin. And inside VS Code, it feels invisible in the best way. It doesn't disrupt your workflow. The tab completions are fast, the suggestions are often eerily accurate for boilerplate, and if you're writing something standard like a Next.js API route or a Prisma query you've written 100 times before, Copilot will finish your thought before you finish typing it. But here's where it broke down for my use case. Copilot's chat feature, even the GPT-4 powered version, has almost no awareness of your broader codebase. I asked it to help me build a middleware function that checks subscription tier before granting and dashboard access. It gave me a technically correct function, completely disconnected from how my auth was actually structured. I spent 45 minutes debugging code that was wrong, not because the AI didn't know how middleware works, but because it had no idea how my project worked. That's the context problem at scale across a full SaaS codebase. That 45 minutes happens 6 times a day. That's your entire afternoon gone. Copilot is genuinely excellent if you're an experienced developer who just wants to type less. For a solo founder, building complex interconnected systems, it's a fast typist who doesn't know your business. Day 11, I switched to Windsurf, which is made by Codium, and this is where things got interesting. Windsurf is priced at $15 a month on the Pro plan as well, so same cost as Copilot, but the philosophy is radically different. Windsurf introduces what they call Cascade, an agentic AI system that doesn't just respond to your prompts. It reads your entire codebase, tracks what you're doing, and can take multi-step actions autonomously. Think of the difference between asking someone for directions versus handing them the wheel. Here's a concrete example from day 14. I needed to refactor my Stripe webhook handler because I changed how subscription tiers were stored in the database. In Copilot, this would have been a back and forth conversation where I'd paste code in, get suggestions out, manually apply them, then realize something else broke. In Windsurf's Cascade mode, I described the problem in plain English. It read my webhook file, my database schema, my subscription utility functions, identified 3 places that needed to change, and made all 3 changes in sequence, explaining each one as it went. What would have taken me 90 minutes took 18. The weakness I found with Windsurf is that it occasionally overreaches. It's eager. There were 2 instances where Cascade made changes to files I hadn't asked it to touch, and in one case, it introduced a subtle bug in my authentication helper that I caught 2 days later during testing. When an AI is autonomous enough to work across your whole codebase, you have to review its work like you'd review a junior developer's pull request. That's not a deal breaker. That's just the cost of that much speed. Day 21, Cursor, I'd been avoiding it because everyone online sounds like they're being paid to promote it. After 9 days of deep use, I understand why the noise is so loud, and I also understand what the noise gets wrong. Cursor is a full fork of VS Code, which means setup is near zero friction. It looks identical to what you're already using, but underneath, it's built around something they call Composer, which is their version of a multi-file agentic workflow, similar to Windsurf's Cascade, but with more granular control. Cursor's Pro plan is $20 a month. You're paying $5 more than the other 2, and that gap matters depending on what you're optimizing for. What Cursor does better than anything else I tested is codebase indexing combined with explicit context control. You can use the @ symbol to tag specific files, folders, or even documentation URLs directly in your prompt. I could write a prompt that said, build me a billing status component, and then tag my Stripe utility file, my user schema, and a link to the Stripe documentation all in one message. The output was shockingly coherent. It understood the shape of my data, the structure of the Stripe response object, and what my existing UI components looked like. I shipped that billing component in 22 minutes, from scratch. Tested and working. Over 9 days with Cursor, I built the entire admin panel, which was the most complex part of the project. Role-based access, real-time client status views, the ability to manually override subscription states. In a traditional workflow, that's a week of work minimum for a solo developer. I did it in 3 days, while also handling customer emails and working on my landing page copy. That's the actual ROI of getting this choice right. Now here's the catch that none of the YouTube videos about these tools will tell you. These tools do not replace architectural thinking. I watched a founder in a Discord community, I'm in Burn 3 full weeks, because he let Cursor build his entire authentication system from natural language prompts without deeply understanding what was being built. When he needed to debug a session persistence issue, he had no idea how his own auth worked. He had fast code he couldn't own. That is a trap. The right mental model is not the AI builds and I ship. The right model is I architect, the AI executes, and I review. If you use these tools as a shortcut around learning, you will hit a wall that no AI can help you through. Also worth saying plainly, all 3 tools have rate limits on their base plans. Cursor's fast request limit will stop you mid-flow if you're hammering it all day. Windsurf's Cascade has caps on how many agentic actions you can run per day. Copilot is the most consistent but also the least capable at the level these other 2 operate at. Budget for the reality that heavy daily use on any of these tools might push you toward the higher tier plans, which run between $40 and $45 a month. Still nothing compared to a developer retainer, but it's not as cheap as the marketing suggests. My final rankings for a solo founder building a SaaS product. If you're just starting out and still learning to code, Cursor is your tool. The context control is unmatched, and the output quality on complex tasks is the highest of the 3. If you want the fastest raw execution speed and you're comfortable reviewing autonomous changes, Windsurf's Cascade is genuinely remarkable and underrated. If you're an experienced developer who already has a mature workflow and just wants a boost, GitHub Copilot earns its $15. I shipped a functional MVP in 30 days with real Stripe billing, working auth, and a client-ready dashboard. Solo, no contractor, no agency. One of these tools had more to do with that than any productivity hack I've ever tested. If you're building something or trying to build something and this kind of breakdown is useful to you, subscribe to Venture Void. New videos drop every week covering the real mechanics of AI tools, solo business infrastructure, and what actually works when you're building alone. Drop a comment telling me what you're working on right now. I read every one.